Hey y'all, it's been a while since I've done a video, especially a fragrance video with the boom arm, but here I am again. I'm home. Sorry for the really bad lighting. I cannot get around this. The lighting in this room is terrible, especially for like recording and things like that. I got a window back here, no curtains, nothing. We don't really have like extra rugs to at least cover the windows, so just bear in mind I know the lighting is terrible. This is all I got. I did whatever I could with my little webcam because that's what I use for my YouTube videos when I'm recording myself. I was fortunate enough to be able to put a boom arm back into one of my other videos. I haven't used it since I've been here in LA. I have been able to use it where I've been recording my previous fragrance videos, but I believe from here on out I'll be using this area just because of the boom arm. The lighting in the area that I was at before was actually better, but I really have a hard time just holding the microphone and just holding fragrances. I don't really like doing that. So I will sacrifice a little bit of the lighting quality, a little bit of video quality as well. Cause yeah, this does not look as good as the other videos that I've done in that previous spot. But just bear with me. I'm here for like not even 2 months anymore. I'll be back in Syracuse around, I think I'm flying back late August. So by that time, when I get all my stuff situated back home or home, I guess, because I'm at home right now in LA. But when I get back to Syracuse, the recordings I'll do are gonna be better than the ones I've been doing here. So just keep that in mind. But I was never planning on doing this until I didn't. Or I'll explain it later on. It'll make more sense. When I started my fragrance journey back in late 2019, early 2020, one fragrance that all the fragrance YouTubers were talking about at the time was a fragrance that actually really intrigued me. And it took me a long time to get a bottle. I finally got a bottle earlier this year while I was in Syracuse from a trusted eBay seller. So that's the caveat, is that you can't really find this anywhere unless you're at an online discounter. But the fragrance that I finally got a hold of, Dior Homme. Sorry with the ring light. Like I said, lighting is terrible. So Dior Homme, one of the most, in terms of the designer market, one of the most influential fragrances of all time. And the reason why I say influential is because it started the trend with powdery, makeupy, lipstick type of iris, which is not something a lot of people were fond of, especially when this was released back in 2005. This is not an original formulation. I It's so hard to find an original silver stem formulation. This is, I believe, the 2011 formulation from 2011 to 2019. If this was a 2020 version of the real Dior Homme, it would have had Dior Homme original on the bottom. You can't see it. It's gonna be difficult to point it out, but just says Dior Homme right there. Like I said, lighting is terrible, so just bear with me. When I initially thought I bought this fragrance, there was a listing from a really trusted eBay seller, had a 100 milliliter bottle of this version of Dior Homme, $81 earlier this year with the phone, not a 50 mil. This is a 50 mil. I bought a 50 mil for a different price, different seller. I don't want to accuse, but that is the seller I remember. Actually, let me look. Let me look at my phone real quick, cause I don't wanna assume. I don't want to accuse just because. I want to get the seller right, and it's no flack on them. Or actually, kind of flack on them for misrepresenting one of their products. I'll put a screen recording on here right now just so that you guys know what I'm looking at. So if you look, I'll just do this. This is, I don't care. Oh, there it is. Now it looks a little different. So you notice that, oh, this was, oh, never mind. I got this twisted. I bought this late last year. So there's the product. Who is this from? Oh, One Perfumes. Okay, so that was the seller. So as you see in the photo here, if I click on that, oh, see, it doesn't show it anymore. But if you could look at the little box right here, and I'll like I said, I'll put this photo somewhere on the screen. I'll do picture over picture. So if you see that photo that I'm at right now, it looks like this but bigger. So this was marketed as a 100 milliliter bottle of the. I don't want to call it the Homme 2020 because that's not the Homme 2020. But what Dior Homme was known for, which was that powdery, lipsticky, makeupy iris that with a little bit of chocolate, a little bit of freshness, really incredible scent. And actually, this was not my first Dior Homme. My first Dior Homme was Dior Homme Intense. I bought that last year while I was here in LA. Gorgeous scent. My favorite designer at the moment. I mean, you can't really go wrong with it. It's just such a good, and actually, in my opinion, you do not have to dress it up because it's such a comforting smell, in my opinion, with the musk and the lavender. Of course, the iris is there, but that blends really well together. Very comforting, very relaxing, very inviting, at least in my experience when I was wearing it. Lot of head turns, not necessarily compliments, but I did grab a lot of people's attention. I always got some like double takes from different types of people.
And it also helped out that I was Filipino and that I'm going to Syracuse University, so I already look like a commodity out there, anyways.
But without getting sidetracked, so you saw the photo that put on through my phone via eBay. So the bottle that came through, actually, still kind of upset about it, but not as much anymore. Was this, and this is actually different. This is the Homme 2020. Dior Homme 2020 has nothing to do with the original Dior Homme, nothing to do with the formulation from 2011 to 2019, which this one is. Dior Homme 2020 is a brand new fragrance, and I know a lot of people have said it before. I know a lot of people will say it again. I will not be the last person to say this, but Dior, why the hell did you call this Dior Homme 2020 when it had nothing to do with the original Dior Homme? Boggles my mind, absolutely boggles my mind. Anywho, so this is the one that came in the mail from that seller, One Perfumes. I've bought quite a few of their fragrances. I still trust them, even though they sent me the wrong Dior Home. And you know what? It was a blessing in disguise, and I'll get into that a little later. So some key differences. I've talked about this in previous videos, like the cap, the CDs look very different from the formulation. So this is the 2011 to 2019 CD. This is the 2020 formulation of the CD. The Dior Homme, that's the big D. Big D Dior is fairly new.
Hey, yo, pause.
Kenny gave me one.
Yes.
The vibrator?
Yeah.
It's one of the
No,
best.
whoa,
one of the
hey,
best.
whoa, no. I didn't give you a vibrator.
Yes, you did.
I gave you a hyper vocal.
Yes, you did.
I did not give you a vibrator.
Yes,
I gave
you
you a
did.
hyper vocal massaging machine.
This is just a muted Dior Homme. You can't really see it clearly because I don't have autofocus on. You could kind of make it out at least. Again, the CD on the top of the atomizer. This one's gonna be a little harder to navigate. There you go. So CD on the top of the atomizer there on the 2011 to 2019 formulation, and the 2020 and beyond, I believe. They went with the Bumblebee. I don't see. There we go. They went with the Bumblebee on the atomizer. The build of the bottles too are fairly different. A lot more noticeable in person than on camera, especially with my shitty lighting. The bottom of the bottle is a lot thicker on the older formulation of Dior Homme than the Dior Homme 2020. So that's one big obvious one. And actually the rest of this is fairly the same. Yeah, these are pretty much the same after that. We'll talk about the scent right now, which is what I really wanted to focus on because a lot of people hate Dior Homme 2020 for what it did to the Dior Homme line. Completely sidetracked, took away the iris, just became this aroma chemical dominated ISOE super type of fragrance, which actually is not bad. It's not bad, but people and myself included were mad at the fact that it took over what Dior Homme was known for. As I mentioned before, powdery iris. President's Day in here. And here in Dior Homme Intense, I have not got my nose on the other Dior Hommes. Not, oh, I really want to get Dior Homme. Oh, that one's really difficult to find nowadays. I haven't smelled Dior Homme Sport or Dior Homme Cologne, but those ones, they have their own batch variation issues and they don't have as much iris as the original or the Intense. Dior Homme Parfum, especially because I'm in America, that's a whole nother different problem. Extremely hard to find, and when it is in America, it is very expensive. That's the reason why this one gets a bunch of hate because it took that iris away and it became an aroma chemical dominated fragrance, like I mentioned. Not a bad thing, and actually, which made it more versatile. This is like a modern man nowadays. This is a modern, classy man, knows what he's doing, will put together, doesn't have to be formal, but definitely dresses up really nice as well. The Dior Homme here was always known for being dressy, but like I said before, it doesn't have to be formal. It's just easy to dress it up. People give it flack only because it took away the iris, and they're kind of disregarding the fact that this is actually a solid scent. The Dior 2020 is a solid scent. If you're frag head, you've been in the game for a few years now. You love your Dior your Dior Homme before the Dior Homme 2020, that type of stuff. Your Dior Homme Intense, your Dior Homme Parfum, all of that stuff. Still give this a shot if you haven't. I mean, it's been 2+ years since that happened. Just give it a shot. This is actually a really modern, masculine scent that works every day, any time of the year. This is versatile, wear it anywhere, anytime type of fragrance. In the Dior Homme line, obviously Sauvage is its own thing. That blew the world up, even though like you had your, so basically like the 90s had Aqua di Gio, the 2000s had like 1 million, couple other fragrances as well in the 2000s that just blew up. 2010s was all about Bleu de Chanel and Dior Sauvage. Those are fine fragrances in their own right, although I haven't smelled all the formulations or the concentrations of both of those fragrances. Dior Sauvage and Yves Saint Laurent. Why? Because I'm gonna mention why, because that's another big blue fragrance in the fragrance community and in the mass market, in the mainstream market. Dior Sauvage, and why it in particular Eau de Parfum, because that's the big blue fragrance in the Y line and for Yves Saint Laurent. Those are more casual than formal leaning type of blue fragrances. Whereas Bleu de Chanel, and even though this is not a blue fragrance, so this is kind of like classy, like Bleu de Chanel, very smooth, refined, even though it's based around aroma chemicals. Very, very nice. It's about Dior Homme. This is all about that iris, little bit of cacao in the base, gives it a nice, sexy sweetness. Some bergamot in the top here, give it a little touch of freshness, but it's not a fresh scent at all. So why would I talk about the two and compare them when they're not really comparable to begin with? The reason why is because a lot of people wrote off Dior Homme 2020. And I'm just here to give it a little bit of light. I'll give it credit to what credit's due. You know what? This is, if this was not in the Dior Homme bottle, if this was like Dior Pour Homme, I know they have like Dune Pour Homme and stuff like that, but Dior Pour Homme, Dior L'Homme, or whatever, Dior for Men, you could have given it a different name and used a different bottle style. This would have sold like hotcakes. But the fact that they took this bottle, this name, the DNA, and just ripped it apart and redid it when they didn't necessarily need to, kind of got a lot of people mad, in especially in the fragrance community. I don't know about the mainstream market, but in the fragrance community, a lot of people were really, really pissed off when that happened. And the reason why I talked about this being a trendsetter for the time being, '05, was because after this fragrance, I'm not saying this was the first fragrance to incorporate a fantasy makeup lipstick type of iris, but this started the trend. And then you started getting other iris fragrances like 10 some odd years later. You get your Prada L'Homme, which is a soapy iris. Your Valentino Uomo, which makes the iris a lot more chocolatey. You get your Givenchy Gentleman line, which you utilize, especially the EDP, because I don't know about the EDT, but I know for sure the EDP concentrations of Givenchy Gentleman, they utilize the note of iris too. It started that trend, and those big houses have made a profit with their iris scents as well. Obviously, there's some iris fragrances that are no longer on the mainstream market. You can't just find them in your typical Macy's or Dillard's. You have to go in your secondhand stores and try to find them, hunt them down. But this was an icon for a reason. This is still a Hall of Fame fragrance. This is still good. This is still good. And I honestly believe that for the new people in that are starting to get into fragrances, if you want something that will make you stand out a little bit from the crowd, I'm not saying this is like a mind-boggling, completely different fragrance compared to every other fragrance out there. But if you want to stand out a little bit, be a little more classy, modern type of person, this is a really good scent as well. If anything I told you about your makeupy, lipsticky, fantasy iris with a little bit of cacao and a little bit of freshness at the top sounds interesting, there are a few bottles floating around. You just need to be patient enough to wait for them because when they do come around, they're gonna go by quick. And when they're sold out, it's gonna take a long time for someone else to try to sell their bottle. Dior Homme has that problem. Don't even think about buying Dior Homme Parfum unless you want to pay all your shipping, your Europe shipping, and all of that crap. That's gonna make it way too expensive. Dior Homme O, like what I'm doing right now, I'm waiting around. I found a couple good deals on another 50 mil of Dior Homme O, and I'm probably gonna pull the trigger eventually. If you could own both of these, by all means, if you got the money, like I said, not the cheapest thing in the world, especially in the designer market. And I will tell you, if you can, do your best not to pay retail. The only time I would pay retail is if one, that's the only way you're able to find your fragrance is retail, or two, if you really love the brand and do want to support them. If you love the brand, support them the right way, pay through them. But you could guarantee that you're gonna find a fragrance cheaper, the same fragrance cheaper on an online discounter or a discounter in person. But stuff like this, if it weren't for your eBays or your Fragrance X, your Fragrance Net, your FragranceBuy.ca, all that stuff, you wouldn't be able to find fragrances like Dior Homme, which are no longer in production. This one was a little different. I wasn't necessarily going over the scent as to what I think about it, not as much. I did say like I do like both of these. If I had to really pick one, obviously because I love the iris, Dior Homme. I'm gonna pick the older Dior Homme. This is really good too, though. I will tell you, I do reach for this more than I reach for this. But the main reason why is because I know this is really hard to come across nowadays, and also because I have Dior Homme Intense, which the reason a lot of people's problems with this fragrance was that this didn't really last as long. I mean, the older formulation probably lasted days or whatever, but as I started getting older, like 2018, 2019, that type of winding down on the years of the fragrance, started getting weaker reformulation. This is like I think the second or third formulation of Dior Homme before it became Dior Homme 2020. So if performance was an issue and you've smelled Dior Homme before Dior Homme 2020, get Dior Homme Intense. Dior Homme Intense with this style of bottle, that juice is pretty much the same. At least from what I've heard. I haven't smelled the newer bottles. I have an older bottle, fortunately, while they were still there. I able to find an older bottle here. So if performance was an issue, just jump to Dior Homme Intense. And if you're lucky enough to find Dior Homme Parfum for like $100 to $150 within that price bracket, and it's a legit seller or it's from Dior themselves, just jump the gun if you like Dior Homme Intense. That's what I'm gonna do. Hopefully one day I find Dior Homme Parfum, but I gotta wait. I actually need to get Dior Homme Eau and Valentino Uomo Aqua. I did talk about a video doing a first impression on Valentino Uomo Aqua, and the more I smelled that on my skin, the longer it lasted on my skin, the more I wanted a freaking bottle. I'll leave a card up here to that video. So yeah, like a comment, like the video, comment down below, subscribe to my channel. I will come at you with a couple other videos. Sorry for being sporadic with my uploads because I've been doing quite a lot, even though I've been off for like a week and a half or something. I've been doing quite a lot. I've had a lot of fun during my summer break, but I still want to grind some content out there, even though it's summertime. So until then, I don't know when it's going to be, but I'll see you in the next one.